In this short video, I just want to provide some very quick thoughts about ethos, pathos, and logos. You need to read what your textbook says about this, and then it would really help, I think, if you're still wondering what these things are and how they can be applied and expanded upon and how they can be a useful tool to you for you to use in your own analysis. I would highly recommend just Googling the terms or putting them in YouTube and finding videos on them. You'll find many. This three-part tool of analysis is very common. Um, Ethos, pathos, and logos. These are things that a presenter of information, an author, a film director, a designer, a marketer, a recruiter, any sort of presenter of information may employ to have you, the audience, track or align with what they are trying to get you to do, think, see, or believe. Ethos speaks to, very quickly, the credibility of the source. So sometimes there might be a sense of this person is really trying to get you to trust them. Maybe when they tell you their credentials. Usually I do that a bit at the very beginning of a class so that I can share my experience with students so I can get them to trust me. And so that would be an act of ethos on my part to try to build up the trustworthiness. I'm trying to put on display credibility, value, worth of the source of the information. Okay. Then when it comes to the information itself, logos is just simply, does it make sense? Is it using the right data? Is it telling you lies? If it's telling you any sort of deceitful information that's just not true, or exaggerating the numbers, then it has a problem with the logos. Okay, logos is talking about the reasonability of the thing. And then pathos is the engagement of the emotions. So sometimes, that's very effective. If we feel emotional connection to something, it might influence what we do with it, how we believe it, how we buy it, how we use it, that sort of thing. If a source full of ethos, a credible source, has something that is full of logos, the correct logo, in other words, it's correct, it's logical, it's right, it corresponds with reality, it's the truth, that person, that producer of the information has every right then afterward to try to engage the pathos to motivate you towards action. All right, so sometimes the role of emotion in this sort of information sharing, persuasion, is sometimes given a sort of a bad rap, if you will, because it sometimes is placed to the side as far as like not necessarily necessary, but it is very powerful and it speaks directly to a very essential part of you as being a human. I've yet to run across a table that has emotions, or a computer program that, can be described as being joyful, or sad in itself as a sentient being. So, I definitely don't want to downplay emotions, but they need to be put in their proper place. Pathos follows logos. Now, sometimes when you think of your audience, if all of this is new to your audience, you need to spend a lot of time on ethos and logos because you need to build up their credibility in you. And then you also need to just bring them up to speed about the content of the thing, right? About the information, the data, the facts, the logic of that thing, whether it's a career path or a investment tool or a new car or a book or a movie, or it could be lots of things that people just don't have time to know everything, right? So they might know very little about that. At that point, you'll need to focus on the ethos, on the logos of the thing. But sometimes you run across an audience that already is tracking with you as far as all the data goes, but they aren't really acting on it. And so at that point, you might emphasize pathos in your approach, but that is only because you know that they already have the logos in position. So the order is pretty essential. Logos always comes before pathos. And the more that logos is connected to the ethos of the source, right, the credibility of the source, the stronger it is as a persuasive tool. All right. I want to just do two quick examples with just some images I found and some text. Now, I would consider both of these text. Now, obviously, there's a very specific sense of the word text, right? Words on a page. But if you think in terms of the text as being coded communication, in other words, you're using the alphabet, whereas in other ways you might use the music scale or zeros and ones if you're writing a deep code, a binary code, computer code. You know what I'm saying? But it's information designed to communicate that is in a fixed material format. That could be the actual paper. It could be on the screen because of the ways the electrons are arrayed in the memory of the computer chip. And so you have a material format of this. It could be a sound recording that's recorded onto that CD or whatever device has captured the communication. And you can take that fixed format, you can play it over and over and over again. So it's replayable. Another essential part of this notion is that it's copyable. That's why copyright comes into it. And it's public. That's where the notion of publication comes into it, because it's public because a mass audience can access it. It's not just hidden away in the mind of the author. So when you think of a text that way, a movie is a text and a brochure is a text, okay? So as far as this goes, this is a brochure for a credit card, and because of the laws governing what banks can do concerning credit and financial instruments like that, as an everyday audience, I'm going to grant them the logos. I'm going to say, okay, everything that's on here is probably true in terms of what they're promising, the numbers that they're presenting, the rates of the interest and all of that, because if it isn't, they're running a very high risk legally. And it's hard to see an established bank really not take those risks seriously. So I'm going to assume logos. But I might want to reconsider ethos and pathos. The pathos here would be, what is this image trying to make me feel? And there's the sense of adventure and freedom, space, clean air. A sense of control, you might even say. It might be a little bit of a stretch, but you're high up and you're looking out and it looks like all of this is land under your supervision, if you will. Supervision literally being a high vision, an upward glance downward. Again, that might be a little bit of a stretch, but I think when you're trying to tease out the notions of pathos, you're never going to be able to prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt, because you're talking about how you think this thing is designed to make people feel, right? And this is, I think, we can assume it's trying to make you feel adventurous, freedom, health, in a sense. Think of all the clean air and the walking up to get to that spot. A sense of, again, I would say peace, or a sort of a dominion. You're seeing that whole landscape. Okay, so I think I wouldn't argue too much with you if you wrote that in your pathos section when you're analyzing this. It's in the ballpark. It sounds like it very well could be exactly what you're saying. So remember, some of this you can nail down, because with logos, if you actually see the mistake in the numbers, I mean, it's very clear. But with pathos, that's more of a feel that you're going for. It's more of an educated guess as to how that picture might be making most of its audience feel. There's always going to be one or two that just completely doesn't connect with the picture, but in the main, on average, is it designed to make a certain people feel that way? What way is it? Can you describe it? That's pathos. Okay. Now, as far as ethos goes, I might have a little question about this, because I know that they're giving me a pretty big gift, so they must really want me, the 60,000 award points, they must really want me to take out a credit card with them. And they're not, Barclays, this is a Barclay card. Barclay is not necessarily going to say, hey, we're not very good at this. We want to manage your funds. We want to put your money to work with us. And in return, we'll allow you to buy stuff right away, and we'll let you pay for it over a long length of time. That's what we'll give you. You give us the right to work with your money and our investments. We'll give you some reward points, a one-time offer, but that's nice. But Barclays, as Barclays, is not necessarily in a position to, they have an invested interest in what you do with this. They want you to put their money in there with them. And one way that people on that side of the line concerning credit card activities make money is just by making sure that you don't pay it all off at once. So if you buy $1,000 couch on this, they want you to take, 10 months to pay it off, $100 for the principal. And because they want you to take the long path, they're going to tack on a little bit of interest fee, right? Maybe it's going to be $105 you're paying. So at the end, they actually made $50 on you. And if you're late, they reserve the right to charge you $40 every time you're late. So their business model kind of depends on your ability to be very comfortable with carrying debt, right? And that's risky. That's risky to put a person on that position. So, like I would have a hard time just really having a friend be in debt to me. I would rather much just give it to them as a gift. So, I think Ethos, I think it's going to be a little bit questionable as to, are they really after my best interest? Okay. Now, this other one is a documentary called Sicko. And I'm going to try to zoom in here, and can you see that the producer Michael Moore is sitting in a room with skeletons surrounding him? Okay, and I mean, again, just think of the word sicko too. So Ethos, Pathos, Logos is the ethos of Moore. If you know anything about him, he's a very controversial documentary maker. I would say this: the only time his ethos would get in trouble is if you can show that he has connections behind the scene that align with what he's trying to do in terms of any sort of monetary award he might have or reward he might get for getting you to think a certain way. For example, if in this documentary he really, really pushes herbal care, and then if somehow you were to find out that he has a lot of money invested in certain herbal companies, then see that ethos would be undercut because he has a material profit to promote. If you listen to what he's saying here and actually end up doing it, you might actually, I'm talking about a good section of the people watching the film, the audience might actually help him earn some money by turning to herbal treatment. Okay, now I don't know really if herbal treatment is mentioned here. I haven't seen this one yet, but that would be a sense where there's a bit of a question mark concerning the ethos of Moore, because the notion is, does he have anything to gain with what he's saying monetarily or materially, or sometimes through power too? Sometimes people are very much committed to gaining more power for themselves. So you might not be able to track this simply through material wealth. Often you can, but sometimes the ethos is undercut because you realize this person really likes something like power or physical sensuality or winning. They like to just win. And so there might be something driving them that might undercut their independent stance. Okay. So for the most part, a knowledgeable, independent assessor or author has very good ethos, because what do they have to gain whether you believe them or not? You see what I'm saying? What do they have to lose? So Coke, the Coke company, telling you that their products, it's not the sugar in their products, but it's in fact the lack of getting up and moving that causes you to become obese if you're a constant Coke drinker. And this is a broad sweeping generalization, but that amount of liquid sugar being put into your system in that fast delivery really does a number on the insulin production, and you're going to have to store that fat that the insulin, or that fat the sugar the insulin pulls out of the bloodstream in terms of fat. You're going to have to store it somewhere. So unless you're drinking Coke and then running a 5-mile jaunt in the woods, it's going to be stored somewhere. It's not just the fact that maybe we're not running 5 miles after we drink a cherry Coke. that might be the cause of it, but the amount of sugar, just the straight up amount of sugar in that thing, has a lot to do with it as well. So for the Coke company to say our sugar levels are fine, it's just that the American public is not exercising, undercuts their ethos. And in fact, that's what they did. You can research this, and you can look at what Coke in North America tried to promote in their. They gave it a name, their exercise program idea that they were trying to promote among school children, I think. But anyway, so if someone has something to lose or gain through the ethos, that through the presentation of the logos and the pathos, and just trying to persuade you to do something, that's going to undercut the ethos. I don't think he has anything to lose or gain. So I think initially I'm going to consider him as being a pretty good ethos, having pretty good ethos. His logo is going to be, you know, what is he going to do with this? How did he get the statistics? Is he going to tell you his methodology? Is he going to tell you the provenance? Provenance is just a simple, it's just a word to say source. The source, where did it come from? Is he gonna be very careful with the numbers? Is he gonna draw the right conclusions? You know, if it's really only about 60%, is he gonna hesitate and not say the majority, the vast majority? Is he, hopefully he won't say something like if it's, you know, again, just 70%, hopefully he won't say something like 3/4 of the people. That's 75%. You see how you're kind of playing with the logo. So I think that because he has a reputation as an independent filmmaker, he's going to want to be careful with the actual facts. If you're a journalist and you get known for fiddling that way or being sloppy with your logos, you know, your reasoning, your data, you're going to put your career in jeopardy. So that's a risk that you know, you're going to have to take. I'd rather assume that you probably are going to be accurate with your numbers. Now, of course, logos has certain levels to it, right? Because then there's just the factability, if you will, of the number. But then, you know, what do you do with them as you combine them and arrange them and draw conclusions from them? Those conclusions have to be well drawn too, and honest and legitimate, licit, as opposed to illicit. So that would be logos. But as far as pathos goes, I mean, to decide to call it sicko and then to put a bunch of skeletons on the cover, you know, the question would be, whoever designed that cover, what are they trying to make you feel, right? That's pathos. And, you know, I'll just let you draw your own conclusions about that when you're putting skeletons on the cover and you title your documentary Sicko, you know. I can already sense that they're preparing you for an accusatory stance. At the end, they might consider it success if you begin to accuse the modern U.S. healthcare system of malfeasance or of predatory practicing, whatever, right? They're turning us into skeletons. They're killing us, you know, that sort of thing. So there's a sense of urgency, of shock, of danger, of grave, you know, matter, gravitas, if you will. You know, this is serious stuff, you know. Well, that's what I wanted to say about ethos, logos, and pathos. Nothing really new than what your book is saying, but sometimes it helps just to hear it, and then also just giving you simple examples. So don't ever hesitate to go for simplicity when you're trying to understand new concepts. Sometimes college textbooks overshoot the mark in terms of simplicity and the way they should be conveying the information, because many times the people writing these textbooks are having their work assessed by other professional writers, or sometimes this will be part of their orwa, or their collection of work that helps them be promoted in their field. And so they're not necessarily writing to students, although the book is ostensibly being sold to students. Yes, that's what the book is for. But they're writing at a very specific technical level that overshoots many people, except those other professionals in the field that are going to assess the book and critique it or review it. And it's very sad to see that happen. And we've lost a very valuable tool, and that is being willing to accept just some basic pedagogical help when you don't know where to go next. You need to find the text that speaks to you directly, and sometimes the simpler the text is for a new skill you're trying to get, the better, you know, the better. Okay, thank you for watching.